Oh, no, no, no.
I'm willing to be called a fossil.
So
Stay.
this clip, you can clip it on your
remote.
And
downside is next slide.
that's very good. Yes, thank you. Oh, dear. Can everyone hear me? Yes. I'm afraid my slides do not have the magnificence that I'm sure that some will. However, this will be a somewhat biased history of TeX and TUG, both of them. I'm assuming that you're familiar with the why and how of TeX.
Okay, so, all right, so everyone, let's pause. So we had a schedule. Let's pause for 5-10 minutes while we get the microphone set up, if that's okay with everyone. Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
We'll have a 5-minute break to set up the microphone.
So, the receivers on.
I wrote yesterday.
So this is the microphone. So the power's there. When you press it, it should turn the green. So, oh.
Has anyone escaped?
I don't think so.
Some escapees, I think. But
Yes, I
think
see escapees. Hello? Can you hear me back there?
Okay.
Good. If there's anyone who has escaped, I hope they come back. So I'm assuming that you're familiar with the why and how of TeX, so I will just address that very sketchily and then concentrate on the creation and growth of TUG. Much of what I've been talking about can be found on the web in the interviews posted on the TUG website or in articles published in Tugboat. My goal is to put this material together into a coherent stream, mainly chronological, concentrating on many of the people responsible for the organization as it exists today. With a few exceptions, I'll stop at the year 2000. So, yes. We begin. Don Knuth wasn't happy with the proofs for the second edition of Volume 2 of The Art of Computer Programming. He believed he could do better, so he undertook the creation of a program that would produce typeset output as good as that prepared by skilled monotype compositors. The Stanford Computer Science Department was well stocked with talented graduate students, and many of them would be gathered into the TeX project. This is them gathered together at the 10th anniversary when they could be asked questions. An invitation was extended to Knuth by the American Mathematical Society to deliver the annual Gibbs Lecture at their 1978 annual meeting in Atlanta, Georgia. The topic chosen by Don was mathematical typography, and this has been published in the AMS Bulletin, and it can be found online at the AMS website. One of the people in the audience was the chair of the AMS Board of Trustees, Dick Palais. Dick was familiar with the need for reliable composition for AMS books and journals, and he concluded that what Knuth was talking about held real promise for this enterprise. So he pursued the possibilities with Don and the AMS management, And one lovely spring morning in 1979, I was called into the office of my supervisor. This is my supervisor, Sam Whidden, setting up a hot air balloon. He did other things too. He handed me a small yellow book with a large green TeX on the cover and said a ticket and a list of addresses, and told me to go to Stanford, learn TeX, bring it back and make it work. Hello? What happened? I've lost my screen.
Where did our slides go? Go ahead.
So just give me one moment, I will just quickly restart all of this.
Barbara, could you put the mic some bit closer to her?
I'll try.
Okay.
Well, put all this again. It was there.
Oh. No, it's not there.
That's up there, but this is.
Not Eric again.
Wait, okay, yeah, there's this YouTube, that's still it.
The YouTube is delayed.
Just to check, I didn't touch something that I shouldn't have.
100%
Okay.
my fault.
Something with the. We're on. Where am I? This one. This one will be the one we're on, right? Yes, I think. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. The group from the AMS, there was a small commune of about 5 or 6 people who settled in at Stanford, and we all got to work. I was assigned to work with David Fuchs. And David, he's still a whiz, and he's still involved sort of in the shadows. He sat me down in front of a green screen terminal attached to the Sail Deck System 10 and booted up an Emacs tutorial so that I would be working with the same editor that was used by the TeX project. I will tell you that I refuse to be drawn into editor wars, because after so many years using Emacs, it's impossible to use any other editor or word processor effectively. The Emacs commands have migrated to my fingers, and if I try to use anything else, the results are simply disastrous. So, my advice is use whatever editor you're most comfortable with and best meets your own requirements. So, other participants in this little commune were a member of the Math Review staff and 2 mathematicians, Bob Morris and Mike Spivak. I do not have a picture of Bob. I could not find one. But this is Mike Spivak. Bob's assignment was to develop macros usable for the AMS authors in preparing manuscripts for journal articles and books. Mike was charged with writing the instruction manual. But as things turned out, Bob dropped out of the project, and Mike developed the macros that became AMS-TeX and produced the manual Joy of TeX. So, let's see. Well, it's ahead of. It became obvious that since Don Knuth really wanted to return to work on the art of computer programming, if TeX were to be used effectively by random authors, some mechanism would be needed to provide support for them. And the TeX users group was born, or maybe hatched. An organizational meeting was held in February 1980 at Stanford, and a 15-member steering committee was established. Dick Palais was named chair, Sam Whidden became treasurer, a position he held until 1987. Bob Morris became secretary. Other members of the new committee included several grad students from the TeX project, in particular Dave Fuchs, and a few interested mathematicians. The next couple of steering committee meetings were held at AMS annual meetings. Dick Palais was on sabbatical in 1981 to 82, so Mike Spivak took his place as acting chair. But things were happening at Stanford as well. And Don pulled in some font people to help things out with Metafont. Chuck Bigelow, who created the Lucida fonts with his partner Chris Holmes, this is Chris and Chuck, joined the faculty and created a program in digital typography that was in connection with the TeX project. And another experienced font person was called in too, and that's Richard Southall, and he helped with the cleaning up Computer Modern and also completely redesigned the sans serif. Both Chuck and Richard also taught Metafont along with Don. A TUG meeting at Stanford in July 1982 initiated a run of meetings at Stanford, starting with a TeX 82 short course. So progressing, the 1983 TUG meeting at Stanford, you notice these are all at Stanford so far, saw a major change in the organization, the TUG organization. A new set of bylaws, which were prepared by a lawyer and based on the AMS bylaws, was adopted, opening TUG to formal recognition as an incorporated tax-exempt organization, which unfortunately doesn't help anybody outside of the U.S., but if you are likely to contribute in the U.S., you don't have to pay taxes on any of that. So new officers were elected, and they were headed by Pierre Mackay, who became the first president under the new bylaws. Pierre was a classicist, a professor at the University of Washington in Seattle. His specialty was in the Turkic languages, and one of his interests was in languages written from right to left. He and Don actually submitted the first article on that topic to Tugboat. Working on a Unix system, he became site coordinator for that operating system, and with his group was responsible for distributing TeX tapes to new users. That was a whale of a job, and there were actually other distributors, but Pierre was the one who put together the TUG, the Unix load. Another important member of the TeX group at Washington was Rick Ferruta, who was also a board member and vice president from 1988 to 91. But before 1983, Tugboat was edited by a volunteer, Robert Welland, a mathematician from Northwestern University. Production was carried out at AMS by me and used the cut and paste method. So when you look on the web and see the images of Tugboat from the early years, they're all scanned because we don't have files for them. However, Welland retired and I became the editor, which was a rather unsettling prospect. And you see what happened to the title page of the first issue that had my name on it. I forgot the title of the journal. Bart Childs was elected president in 1985 and remained in that position until 1989. And here is Bart. So one of Bart's students, Tom Rokicki, migrated to Stanford, and he joined the TeX project and became the creator of DVIPS and the original Pascal to C converter. In 1985, Leslie Lamport announced LaTeX 209 in Tugboat, and that, I believe, is the first I ever heard of it. Other people had been using it, but they were mostly in the area around Stanford and people who traveled back and forth to Stanford. LaTeX, unlike plain TeX and the AMS TeX macros, was designed as a markup language, which means that you say what something is rather than just resetting the font or the style of type or whatever. And it included facilities for automatic numbering and cross-referencing. These were features of great interest and usefulness to authors and ultimately resulted in the adoption of LaTeX for the AMS publications because authors insisted. So the next period in general, a highlight of 1986 was the coming out party for the TeX book and its companions in the Computers and Typesetting series. This took place at the Computer Museum in Boston, and it was hosted by the publisher Addison Wesley. Annual TUG meetings moved away from Stanford in 1986. The meeting was held in Tufts University in the Boston area. For the next 2 years, the meetings were held in Seattle for 1987 and in McGill in Montreal for 1988. They returned to Stanford in 1989 for the 10th anniversary. At this meeting, this is where Leslie turned over LaTeX formally to Frank Mittelbach, whom you see out there in the audience, and Rainer Schrepf. And that's where my shirt came from, yes. During this time, TeX activity outside North America has been growing rapidly. A TeX meeting was held that was not associated with TUG, was held in Exeter in the UK in July 1988. A highlight of this meeting was the introduction of a TeX archive at Aston University. This is the first real archive by Peter Abbott. And a sweatshirt with a drawing by Dwayne Bibby was prepared in its honor. Unfortunately, I can't find mine, so we don't have a picture. The international flavor was recognized on the TUG board in 1989 by the designation of what were called international vice presidents. And they were all, well, there's too many vice presidents, so nobody was quite sure of what their responsibilities were. And the individuals who were heads of their national or language-specific groups, these were all very knowledgeable people, and it was very good to work with them, but there was the confusion. This innovation lasted only a few years as the TUG board has become less US-centric through the years. We come to 1990, and we get TeX 3.0. And this allows text input to accommodate 256 instead of 128 different characters. And this permits easier input of languages other than English. You know, languages that have those annoying little accents. In June 1990, the annual meeting was held in College Station, Texas, at the Texas A&M University. Nelson Beebe, who you also see here, was elected president, an office he held until the end of 1991. In September, another TUG recognized meeting took place in Cork, Ireland, hosted by Peter Flynn, of whom I also do not have a picture. And Peter became secretary from 1992 to 1995. But in Cork, an extended input configuration was defined, and you can see the result here. And I think it probably doesn't make sense anymore, but it's still there if you want to try it out. The TUG office was also moving around. In 1992, the TUG office, which had been in Providence, partly in the AMS offices, but partly in a separate building, it moved from Providence to Santa Barbara. This move heralded a period of relative instability. From 1995 to 96, the office was in San Francisco, followed in 1997 by a short residence in Three Rivers, California, and it permanently transitioned to Portland, Oregon before the end of the year. July 1993,
Maybe you have to proceed to the slides.
There. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean to miss it. The 19... Good heavens. Okay. In 1993, the annual meeting...
Your mic's off.
At the bottom.
Button?
Let me check. Thank you. Oh.
Your new batteries, Max, the new batteries.
Okay, good, because we definitely need it. So you know that, everyone? Just be a moment.
Gives my voice a chance to recover, so I'm not croaking like a raven.
Upside down. Oh yeah, I put them upside down. That would explain. Yeah. Funny what putting them in the right side up does. There you go.
Sometimes helps. Where were we? Let's see. In July 1993, the annual meeting moved across the Atlantic to Birmingham, England, at Aston University, again hosted by Peter Abbott, who we've also learned was the person to set up the first archive. Christina Thiele of Canada, hooray, assumed the office of president until 1995. In 1994, the meeting returned to North America in July at the University of California, Santa Barbara. George Greenwade became the treasurer for that year and the next. He was an economist on the faculty of Sam Houston State University in Texas, and he was particularly interested in the possibilities of the World Wide Web, which was brand new at the time. And with lasting implications for TeX and TUG, he originated the idea of CTAN, including that name, and established its first home at shsu.edu. In 1995, the meeting was held in St. Petersburg, Florida, with Mimi Burbank being the host. Mimi at that time was production, and for a number of years later was production editor of Tugboat until 2005. And she became instrumental in regularizing the schedule, which had been slipping, and I accept responsibility for the latter. Without her cheerful nagging, that may never have been accomplished. Michel Goossens became president in 1995 to 97. His connections and support were important in the location of the July 1996 meeting in Dubna, Russia. 1996 saw the development of eTeX by Peter Breitenlerner. Peter had been one of the earliest finders of bugs in TeX itself, and the first one he found was in 1987, and he became one of the panel of TeX gurus who vetted bug reports between Don's scheduled reviews. Don's schedule increases 1 year after the previous one is complete, and the next review is scheduled for 2029. So if you have bugs, you still have a couple of years to get them in. And Carl will monitor them, and he keeps me alerted so that I can give probably unuseful comments if necessary. So we're still getting at the first flush of interesting meetings. The 1997 meeting was held at the University of California, San Francisco. One of the hosts was Arthur Ogawa, who was board secretary from 1997 to 2001 and vice president until 2003 after that, and he remained on the board through 2009. So he was the developer of RevTech, which had been begun by David Carlisle in England, and he's that's the LaTeX author package used by the American Physical Society. After the 1997 meeting, the move of the office to Portland took place, and Arthur was one of the very active participants in making that happen. The next president was Mimi Jett. She became president in 1997 and held the office until 2003. So it really was getting more stable. So Mimi had an educational publishing company in Portland, Oregon, and she turned over a couple of rooms in her office that became the home of TUG office until Mimi sold the company. And I'm not sure exactly where the actual headquarters is now, except that it's still accessible to a post office box in Portland.
Sophia's apartment.
Okay. So Mimi, during her tenure, the TUG board was reorganized into a much more stable entity, and Mimi then went off to do other things, and she's now involved in programs promoting Arabic literacy in the Middle East and North Africa. There were two meetings held in 1998. There was TeX Northeast in New York City, and the annual meeting was held in Toruń, Poland, and it was hosted by GUST, which is the Polish national group. In 1999, Vancouver was the host city. Also in 1999, Robin Laxo assumed management of the office, and she held that position until 2023, when she turned it over to her daughter Sophia. Unfortunately, we don't have Sophia here yet. I understand her plane has been messed around with. So the 2000 meeting was held at Wadham College and Oxford University, and this was the alma mater of Sebastian Rotz and a number of other interesting people. Sebastian had been a member of the board from 94 to 97 and secretary from 95 to 97, as well as filling many other necessary functions. Now, Sebastian was not just a proponent of TeX, he was also a proponent of XML and was active in the XML summer school at Oxford. So we had a couple of interesting excursions while we were there. And one was a theatrical performance on the Oxford grounds that was based on tales by Lewis Carroll, also educated at Oxford, and the other King Lear, which was wonderfully performed by the Royal Shakespeare Company at Stratford-upon-Avon. So we had a good time. And I'm pretty close to done, so I'll just finish by mentioning just two more meetings in Newark, Delaware in August 2001, as September 2002 in Trivandrum, which is in southern India. Since then, meetings have moved around the world, usually hosted by local language-specific user groups or organized by enthusiastic individuals. And more recent information can be found on the TUG website, and I encourage you to check it out.
Thank you, Sophia. Are there some questions? Maybe from chat, Boris? Are there questions?
Lots of people in chat just send the greetings to familiar faces and since Barbara, it's And since Barbara, it started some reminiscences and greetings in the chat.
Thank you.
I will send greetings back to them.
So not to revisit editor wars, but one of my most memorable times with Barbara was, I think it was around 10 p.m. at the AMS offices. We were doing some administrative work. I'll leave it at that. And Barbara booted up Emacs, and I was horrified. I said, Barbara, how did we ever become friends?
Thank you. Yes?
So the only other thing I wanted to say about Mimi Jet's tenure was that she and Arthur were really instrumental in making TUG 501c3 instead of 501c6, which is a huge difference. It's whether your donations are taxable or not. And so they deserve, and they went, it's not a fun process, I can tell you. I was not involved happily.
Okay. Thanks, Barbara. So our next speaker will be Takuto Asakura. He's developer of TeX and TUG.